Hello, welcome into episode 10 of the Batcat Beat here on the KSR YouTube channel. I'm Kentucky baseball beat writer Daniel Hager, joined by my guy Stephen P, KSR videographer. We are here at the Candlewood Suites, the Media Hotel here in Omaha, where last night Kentucky fell to Texas A&M 5 runs to 1 run in the 1-0 winners bracket game. Just a no good game with a lot of missed opportunities and just one really bad inning that sunk them. I believe it was the 6th inning where A&M scored 5 runs. Mason Moore, once again, he gets in that 5th and 6th inning and he kind of dances around all game, which he did, and then comes back to bite him a few walks and he gets taken out and Cam O'Brien comes in and gives up a few runs. But, 5 runs is nothing for UK baseball. Like, we've seen that all year. I know they overcame that 7-run deficit at Auburn, and they love their biggie boxes, their 5- and 6-run innings. But Ryan Prager for Texas A&M was phenomenal yesterday, 6 2/3, just 2 hits allowed, and both of those hits came back-to-back after holding Kentucky hitless. So there were 2 outs in the 7th, and Nicholson got the first hit of the game, and the PA announcer came on over, and he sounded, did you hear that? He sounded so disappointed. He was like, hit Kentucky, and everyone started laughing. So I think some people wanted to see some history, but yeah, the offense was not there yesterday. The pitching was there early, but you can only dance around that lineup for so long. And even with Kentucky's lineup, you think you can only dance around it for so long, but it just never came. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the offensive struggles are real right now and have been since UK scored 10 runs against Western Michigan in the tournament opener. I know they scored 10 runs against Oregon State, but that was that was everything going their way, and Oregon State kind of killing themselves in that point. Stephen, just some quick thoughts from you on yesterday's game.
You said 5 runs is nothing for Kentucky, and that is true, but there was a moment last night when it felt like if 1 run was all Texas A&M was going to need. When they got 2 runs off that single, it was 2-0. There was we talked about it in the rapid reaction. There was a moment in the 6th inning where you could have limited the damage. The ball was the wind was keeping the ball in the ballpark. That ball hit the right field. McCoy's got to make that play.
Yeah,
and that was tough because you could have had 2 outs, runner at first. Maybe you get out of the inning only down 2-0, and you're very much alive. But once they got to 5-0, it was pretty much over, I felt like. And the way that Prager was dealing on the mound for Texas A&M, the way the Kentucky bats you just mentioned, and I'm gonna save that stat for you because you put it out on Twitter. It just the bats are really, really cold, and this is a team that has relied on offense. Everybody has said going into this tournament that Kentucky's offense will only go as far as what their offense will take them. Now, when you look back and you look at some of these cold streaks, it's amazing that they were 6-0 going into that game last night.
It's been a testament to how good their pitching has been. And last night, you run into that bit, and it's like, okay, this is maybe what could have been happening, but the pitching has saved them where they've just been holding teams to 2 runs or 1 run or even scoreless. UK scored 1 run in the 9th yesterday, but obviously wasn't enough. I don't want to hold the James McCoy misplay against him because he's been stellar in right field all year. Like, his fielding has been great.
I'm not saying the loss is on McCoy, but I'm just saying, like, I understand how he misplayed it. The wind's blowing in. He takes that step in because if the ball drops, they score a couple. They score a run anyway. Yeah. So it's an important out, and he didn't want to misplay it. I just think maybe you're thinking about the wind too much, and you are taught first step back. It's easier to come in than it is to go back. I'm assuming this is what I was taught growing up. I'm assuming that rule still is applicable to the college to the collegiate level. So no, I'm not saying that he's the reason they lost or that because of him the game was put out of reach. They were all Texas A&M was up 2-0. Kentucky only scored 1 run. Now, does your approach at the plate change? Yes, and like you said, McCoy's been making plays for Kentucky all year. He makes 1 bad play. It happens. But I thought it was a play that Kentucky should have made. I thought that should have been the second out. And it's just, but it's not like that. Again, that didn't cost them the game versus A&M.
No, and we touched on this in the Rapid last night, but it's about time where I mean, it's a good thing where Kentucky baseball fans are starting to really, really care about this program, where it's like it's getting to Kentucky football and basketball levels on social media and over on KS Board. Plug KS Board, love it. But we're getting to where fans are finally like, why is this happening? And I feel like things could be different here, and that hasn't really been a thing. But
Monday morning quarterbacking has not been a Kentucky baseball thing.
It's good. You know what that is? That's growth for the program. People care, and it's good. But I want to touch. It's just the offensive struggles of just at the top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup are really killing this team. And we got back to the hotel last night, and I was like, Stephen, I think I sounded harsh on the rapid reaction. Because like Devin Burks, I love that guy. One of the best guys you can ever talk to. His leadership is amazing. Everything about that guy is awesome. Grant Smith, amazing in the field. Ryan Walshman has been unbelievable all year. I know he was maybe third team All-American. I thought he should have been higher than that. I thought he should have been first team All-SEC. Yep. That dude is a stud. And even James McCoy, like he's come through a few times this year, and his fielding has been awesome. But those guys right now just really are not performing. I'm looking at it right now, and I still can't believe the stat where they're combined, those 4 hitters. So that's the 1 in the 3 hole and the 8 in the 9 hole. So that's the top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup that turns around. They're 2 for 51.
That is unbelievable.
In the 2 games against Oregon State and the 2 games in the College World Series. It's a losing recipe.
That's 4 of your 9 hitters.
That's 4. Yeah, it's 4 of 5 hitters in a row.
Yes,
that are really struggling. Even Nick Lopez, who's batting 4th, is really struggling right now. I think he's something like 5 for 27 in the last 6 games or so. But then you get like literally all of the contribution is coming from the 5, 6, and 7 hole, which is Daly, Nicholson, and McCarthy. They've got in the last 4 games they've got 19 of Kentucky's 27 hits, and that's in the middle to back of the lineup. It's not helping you. Those guys are getting less at bats than the guys who are at the top of the lineup. And I know, like, Coach Mingione, he is the SEC Coach of the Year. He's the National Coach of the Year. Who are we to question his judgment?
Right.
But it's just, you keep looking at this stuff, and like I said, I'll preface it again. I love Devin Burks, but he comes up yesterday in the 6th inning. They get guys on first and second, 1 out. And everyone's like, okay, maybe here we go. This is where they respond to that 5-run inning. And Burks grounds to third baseman steps on third, throws to first, inning, double play. And it just seems like the top of the lineup right now, and Smith and McCoy at 8 and 9, it's just like auto outs, man. And it's killing the lineup. And it seems like they're getting in these innings that last 3 minutes long, because it's like a strikeout, ground out, pop out. And it seems like it's every time. And that's why these games are going by so quick. It's like Nicholson has been unreal, but when no one's on base in front of him, he's hitting solo home runs.
Solo shots, yeah.
And I mean, you got to ask if it's time for a lineup change, but they're in the College World Series. They're not going to change the lineup, and I'm not going to question it. Like, Mingione knows what he's doing. Great ball coach, but it's really hard to look at outside the window.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't want to question a coach who's the coach of the year.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that because he obviously knows more baseball than we do. But here's what the numbers disagree with him. That's the issue. And I think that you have a guy like Burks in that 3 spot. Look, here's what that kind of does. As you mentioned, the social media stuff. Don't pay attention to the clutter. I hope no baseball players are watching this. But yeah, when you look at Twitter and you look at KS Board and other places where the criticism now is getting louder because people care you're this close to doing something we're already at a point where the school's never been before. So you have a chance to win a national title. People are now invested. Their emotions are invested into this. And then people were upset they lost last night. And I think they just look at the numbers and they look at the last few games and they question some stuff. That's just what we do. Like we wouldn't have this show if we didn't examine coaches' decisions and it's not that we know better than Coach Mingione, but it is something that he has to sort of examine. I don't know that he's going to make a change tonight or whenever this game is played. It doesn't make sense to do it now. You've gotten this far, but I mean, fans are going to be upset about it. I mean, you have a guy, Ryan Nicholson, who's hot. You got McCarthy, who's hitting the ball well. Well, that doesn't help when nobody's getting on base in front of them. And when you have guys in scoring position, and here's what this does. It's similar, as you said, to Reed and Rob not starting.
Yeah, and it's teetering on those levels.
And it
really
becomes like where Devin's a good ball player.
Yeah.
I mean, he was probably going to get drafted, you said, if he'd left.
Yeah, I think if he left last year, he would have been picked. I think he was projected. I mean, he was a top 500 prospect, so he would have gone. Like he's a great ball player. He's just struggling, and he's been struggling. And Waldy is struggling, and Grant's struggling. And it's like when things like that are happening, you need to make changes, and everyone sees it. It's just
it does
tough.
Something to him too. Like DJ caught a lot of flack.
Yeah.
But DJ wasn't a bad basketball player.
Yes.
It was just that we knew that there were guys that maybe did a little bit better, did some things that helped the team more. And maybe what that kind of does is puts Devin in a situation where he's open for criticism. Mm-hmm. Instead of just letting him bat 7th or 8th, or he hit lower in the lineup at some points this season. So that's the thing that if I was Mingione, I would look at. Does dropping him in the lineup hurt his confidence? Well, how much worse could it get?
Yeah.
So, I do think that it would be worth looking at. Coach Mingione says this. He says, easy coaching is doing nothing.
Yes.
Hard coaching is doing what all the stuff that Mingione does, putting on squeeze plays, stealing, doing all. Well, part of hard coaching might be moving the lineup around in the College World Series after losing one game when you previously won the first 6 of the NCAA tournament. Now, I mean, we said it's kind of shocking that with that limited production, because you mentioned the last 4 games. Well, we can go back to the start of the NCAA tournament, really. And that Oregon State game is kind of misleading. They scored 10 runs. Oregon State made a lot of errors. Now, Kentucky kind of forces you into making some throws and making some errors. So that's the thing too. Kentucky had a chance yesterday to go up 1-0, and that was as close of a play at first base as you can get. Perfect execution from Kentucky there. Was it McCoy that laid down the bunt? I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
The catcher made a better play. That was a major league throw to first base, and when you slow it down, I mean, the foot is on the bag as the ball hits the back of the mitt. Mm-hmm. So, do you think if they called him safe there, they would have been able to overturn it?
I think it was so close, whatever the umpire's jurisdiction would have stood. But it's a great point, man. It's McCoy, it's...
So you could have had runners at first and second, still 2 outs, but a run across the plate. The only other thing that I didn't love in that situation was, okay, you have runners at first and second, you got Nicholson up, and Nicholson's been hot, so you let him swing.
Yep.
And I'm all good with that. All good with that. Well, now you have runners at first and second, 1 out because Nicholson gets out, and then McCarthy comes up.
Yeah,
and then we try to bunt with him, who's also been hot.
Yeah.
And if he hits a ball into the outfield, I'm thinking a run's going to score.
He did. He doubled in the 7th inning.
So if he does that there, maybe Kentucky goes up 2-0.
Yeah.
So, or at least 1-0. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I understand this is how Kentucky plays. Again, we're talking about the coach of the year. I'm an idiot. Why would I don't Mingione shouldn't listen to me. But I felt in that situation that, okay, we didn't bunt, so now we're bunting to get to the second out, and now you'll have runners at second and third, but 2 outs, and you got McCoy up. Explain it to me. Make it make sense.
I love the quote that Minge always says, and what everyone says. It's UK wins games by making teams beat themselves, and A&M simply did not beat themselves yesterday.
No, yeah.
Like, the catcher made unreal plays, and A&M all day, I mean, their defense was stellar, their pitching was stellar. They did not beat themselves. And in situations like that, it's when UK wants to play like that, in which, like I said, I love the play call there on the McCoy. Maybe not the back-to-back bunts with 1 out with runners on first and second. Maybe let McCarthy swing the bat since he's been swinging the bat really well.
Yeah, because we forgot to mention, they actually got to third on ball. So you get the runner 90 feet away from scoring due to a balk. So in a way, like the not bunting with or not being able to get the bunt down didn't hurt you all that much because you still got the runner to third. But still, it's like you took the bat out of a good hitter's hands there, and I just don't. Again, hard for me to say. I mean, easy for me to say, and easy for me to say in hindsight because it didn't work out. you know, what's the famous say? If it would have worked, it's a great call. Yeah. So I don't want to sit here and just be overly critical over one loss after this incredible run. Mingion's done an excellent job. We're dissecting a couple of decisions that who knows if it ended. You know, which McCarthy may have struck out anyway.
Yeah, no coach is perfect. No coach is perfect. Coaches deserve criticism sometimes, and it's good to get some feedback and change. But what's the saying? Wins and losses expire at midnight. So that one's expired. Kentucky's now 0-0, and every game now is a must-win game. They'll play Florida tonight, whenever that game is going to get played, because the weather looks awful. But I'm thinking they're going to go Dominic Nyman on the mound, which I'm not sure how big of a fan I am of that. He got shelled against Florida. Like I said, another guy who I really, really like. He was awesome at the beginning of the year, but he just hasn't had his best stuff down the stretch. And maybe a rain delay and maybe a postponement would help Kentucky. I know we'll talk to I talked to Nick De La Torre. We'll show that after here, but he said the same thing about Florida. Maybe they could use a postponement and get Brandon Neely, who's been unreal in the NCAA tournament.
Well, that's the thing. Would you rather that? Who would you favor more?
I mean, it benefits both teams because their pitching is just worn out, and maybe UK can expedite Poozer to Wednesday if. He threw 100 pitches on Saturday. It was up there. So
I'd love to save him just in case. I mean, I guess. But I know you got to win this one first. But A&M, I would love to have another ace to go against A&M. That's what I think. I mean, I'm fine with a bullpen game tonight or tomorrow.
That's what I.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. Let's talk a little bit about. I like what you're going to talk to him about it a little bit, but just to kind of get some people, fired up for this game. Kind of explain what the Florida Gators players were saying about some of the Kentucky cheers from the dugout.
Yeah, Jack Caglione is a monster. Like, he's an awesome ball player. He hit his 34th home run of the season yesterday. Projected to go number 2 overall right now to my Cincinnati Reds. So I might be cheering for him for the next 20 or so years if he pans out. But they played, UK and Florida played back in May, and UK took 2 of 3. But that was a series that you leave and you're like, how in the world did we win that series? Because they very easily could have been swept. The middle game, Florida dominated, which was the game that Nyman started. But the first and the third games went to 10 innings. And in both games, guys are turning into heroes. Nick Lopez was a hero of that series. Ryan Nicholson was a hero of that series. UK was down to their final strike, and he hits that 3-run home run. I think that's just Nicholson's thing, is clutch home runs. And then Eli Small in the third game also, a guy that, I mean, he's a Nebraska native. Maybe a guy that I'd like to see hit. Like, he has not hit since he hit that pinch hit double against Florida, which brought in the game-tying run. But just some stuff like that. Florida has had such an up-and-down season, and they're kind of facing the same struggles that UK is with their pitching and their offense. And, man, they've been battered by injuries. I know their outfielder Ty Evans broke his wrist in one of the games against UK, slid into the wall, and then I didn't even know. Nick, he'll enlighten us in a minute, but his replacement tore his ACL 3 days later. I think that's what he said, which is just really crazy luck. But that's UK. UK will have Florida tonight. But Caglione said, "Oh man, I'm trying to think what the quote was. It was like UK's cheering and stuff should be banned," or he was like, "I'm not sure how they're allowed to do that. It's like Little League stuff," which is kind of like, okay, dude, go on. Like,
there's nothing that upsets some baseball people like the other team having fun.
We were talking about that last night.
It's just like, that's the culture of Kentucky is growing, and I love it. I love the energy that comes out of the dugout, that comes from Mingione, and it goes into the stands. The fans get into it. They're doing the chants. Yeah. I mean, the Kentucky players are having fun. And this is the entertainment industry, Caglione. If you want baseball to continue to grow, you want this sport, college baseball specifically. I mean, this is America's pastime, but we know like football is like. You want baseball to stay relevant. This is what you need. You need stuff like that. That I hate takes like that. Absolutely hate it. I grew up a huge baseball fan, played it, loved the game. I want like guys pimping home runs.
Yes, I do too.
I want it to be fun. Every other sport, they get to talk trash to each other. That's when it's interesting. That's when it's interesting. And it's interesting to me that he even makes those comments. That actually makes it interesting. So I'm not hating on him for saying it, because it actually brings a little bit of drama into the game. But as far as like everyone else and fans, other like there's what's that one team they play in the SEC? They wear orange. They don't win anything. What's the?
Is it is it start with a T?
Yes. So their fans they also hate the Kentucky does all this and call it Little League and softball or whatever. Look, it's so much more fun and enjoyable to watch a game where that kind of energy is coming from the dugout, coming from the bench, coming from the sidelines. Like this, I want that. This sport needs it. It needs that kind of energy, and I love that Kentucky fans have embraced it. I love that throughout the SEC, what I've really enjoyed is how much the fans get into it. I mean, SEC baseball is so fun, and this is what I hope Kentucky fans now watching, getting more invested into this. They're seeing how the other schools do things. Yep. Texas A&M's ball 4, ball 5, ball 6 chant. I can only imagine what that's like in College Station.
Because, it's probably unreal.
And you look at everybody in Nebraska, they catch on to it. They're all doing it. Everyone's doing the Walschmidt walk-up songs. This has been such a neat experience. And before, I know we got to wrap this up soon. So I just want to say that regardless of what happens in this Florida game, I know people don't like moral victories or whatever, but look, Kentucky got here for the first time. Not only did they win a game, they won it in the most dramatic fashion that you can, a walk-off home run. That is a win I'm willing to take, I'm taking home with me.
Yeah, of course.
Regardless of what happens. The only way it really beats it is if you win the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you could win this game against Florida,
that's still
split against A&M,
yeah.
And it's like, is any of those games better than what we saw in game one?
You'll still look back at that first game. Like it's the greatest win in Kentucky baseball history, the greatest moment in Kentucky baseball history. But how are you feeling about tonight?
Tonight, I don't think there's going to be a game. But about
maybe not tonight, but about whenever, 2 days, yet tomorrow, 4 days, next week, however long we stay here, whenever that game happens.
I got on my Cubs 2016 shirt because the Cubs needed to win 3 straight games to win the World Series. Now, Kentucky needs to win 3 straight to get to that College World Series. What is it called?
The final.
The final. So it's a 3-game series.
Yeah.
Kentucky is 5 wins away from a natty.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know that I can go into because if you'd have won that game, I'm like, you're in.
Oh yeah.
Like you got two shots, and I'm pretty sure it would have been Texas A&M. So you would have 2 shots to beat them to go to the finals. Right now, I mean, look, Kentucky's won 3 games in a row before. They've won. What did they start in the SEC? What was their?
It was like 14-0.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So. It's a weird approach to this because, again, it's not that I'm like, oh, I'm satisfied. I don't need to win anymore. I'm good.
Oh, no.
But it is like if they do lose, I'm not gonna be too angry about it. Again, I think this is the start of Kentucky baseball. These last 2 seasons, we talked about it all on the way here. 2023 is when kind of Kentucky baseball history started.
Yeah.
And now it's in its infancy. So to win right away would almost be too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you got to kind of have that thirst. But Stephen, we're not done. Kentucky is going to play Florida, and I think they're going to win. And I think
so. You got us winning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think they're going to win. Coppola's on the mound. He's got around a 10 ERA. He's been injured, and then they'll get to their bullpen, which is down a little bit, like UK's. They've used these arms in these days. So I think they'll win the night. They'll set up that 2-game series with A&M, which UK will have to win both of them, and. Well, I mean, we'll just see what happens.
Just take it 1 game at a time. I do think they beat Florida. I do think they beat Florida. This isn't like the same kind of Florida teams in the past. Like they're in the College World Series. They're obviously doing something right. But I think Kentucky, they had their number in Gainesville. They're winning 2 out of 3. I think they'll win that one. It's trying to beat A&M twice that makes it really.
It's tough. I mean, it's definitely an uphill battle, and I'd love to see the probability of doing that. I know I saw someone put it out after the first day. I'm not sure what it is, but. We're going to stay positive. UK is going to beat Florida. They're going to beat A&M twice, and they're going to face the no good orange purple pickle eater Tennessee Volunteers in the College World Series final, and they're going to beat them in 2 games, and we're going to head back to Lexington with the national championship trophy.
I like it. Let's end it on that.
Yep, we'll end it on that. And I guess I'm joined by Nick De La Torre, of senior writer at Gators Online of On3 Sports. Love On3, doing great things around here. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about Florida with the guys covering all year. So we'll head to that now. All right, we are now joined by Nick De La Torre from Gators Online at On3 Sports, a senior writer. We're all here in Omaha, expecting hopefully to play this game tonight. I don't know what the weather. The weather looks awful, but Nick, thanks for joining us. How was your stay in Omaha been so far?
It's been fun. It's my fourth trip here, so getting used to it. This Candlewood Suites here in Omaha, getting used to being here in the summer, and this is actually the first time we've had real bad weather that I've been here. So something new at least.
Yeah, this is obviously our first trip down here, so I think we might have brought that bad weather with us, but both our teams, UK and Florida, are 2 games into the College World Series now, both 1-1, and we're meeting in the Eliminator tonight or whenever that game is played. The 2 teams played earlier this year in May. UK took 2 of 3, but that series was so much closer than that. 2 of the 3 games went into 10 innings, and UK pulled it out both times. Just how has Florida kind of evolved as a team over that last month since UK had played them?
Yeah, I use the analogy that Friday game. Kentucky was like throwing the ball around early. Florida gets out to a big lead. I said Kentucky, like Florida was like a kid on Christmas who like was handed a present, shook it, thought it was socks, and gave it back. And Kentucky storms back, scores a bunch late, and take 2 out of 3. And when Florida lost that series, they had to go to number 9 Georgia and win a road series to even be eligible. Really, they would have had to make a run in Hoover, which they went one and done there anyway, to even be eligible for the NCAA tournament. So I think what happened with Florida, they've had injuries. They lost their starting right fielder against Kentucky. His replacement tore his ACL 3 days later. So they've actually lost players since then before making this run. But I think the biggest thing for Florida is they've kind of played with their back against the wall. And I asked the guys about that after their game against NC State, and it was like there was no pressure in an elimination game. We've essentially been playing elimination games for 6 weeks now. So I think that's something, but you're getting these hero performances, I'm calling them. Brandon Neely threw 272 pitches in a regional and a super regional over 4 bullpen outings. And of course, Jack Caglione. So the superstars, Jack and Brandon, are playing like superstars. And then you're getting stories like Ashton Wilson, who's starting in right field now, Fisher Jameson out of the bullpen, and a sophomore, Jake Clemente, who missed last season with a shoulder injury. He's giving them quality innings. So you're getting a little bit of both. You're getting your superstars playing like superstars and some of the role players really stepping up in big moments.
Yeah, being in the SEC, just watching Caglione last year and this year has really been a treat, but I'm glad you brought him up because he had some interesting comments about the Kentucky dugout after their series. Just kind of, do you have any insight just on kind of what the team thinks as a whole about all of that and how UK plays?
Yeah, I don't know that Florida had any beef with Kentucky prior to that, but they'll definitely be ready to play them tonight or tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever the game goes. I think it will be. It's interesting because I think, and I say this about Mark Stoops, and it's hard to recruit because you're recruiting against Michigan, just locally, Michigan, Ohio State, not to mention the entire SEC. And he built a program to an identity, and they recruit to that, they develop to that, and they play to that really, really well. And I think Nick does that on the baseball field. And it's, hey, we might not get a guy like Jack Caglione or 9 guys in the lineup that can hit 15, 20, 25, 30 home runs. We're going to play small ball, and nobody else in the SEC really does it. They recruit guys who do that well. They run. I think Kentucky has more successful stolen bases than Florida has steal attempts.
Wow.
So they play their own style of baseball, and I like that. I'm an old school D3 baseball player, so I appreciate small ball. But you also don't see the kind of stuff that they're doing. And to me, baseball is a game of failure. If you fail 7 times out of 10, you're a pretty good hitter. And you have to do little things to keep the mood up, to keep guys off if guys are struggling, to have fun. And I think the longer the season goes, you start to pick up more little things. So Kentucky's having fun. Florida did not enjoy watching it. But listen, if Florida would have swept Kentucky in Gainesville and Kentucky was still doing what they were doing in the dugout, I don't think that Florida would have cared much or said anything about it.
Yeah, it's not often that a team wins 2 of 3 and you kind of come away from that series like that very easily could have been a sweep. I mean, the middle game of that series was just domination, and then Nicholson, UK was literally down to their final strike, and Nicholson hits that 3-run bomb, and that's just kind of goes to the heroics that he's shown even here in Hoover, here in Omaha. I've said that yesterday on the radio too. I'm Hoover, Omaha, whatever. But Nicholson did the same thing with the home run to keep them alive. I'm glad you brought up the point that it seems like Florida's been playing in like elimination games the whole last month of the season. How is kind of the fan base like bought back in this run, and what is their turnout? Because I know I see the fans in your comments and everything, and it's like one game they love the Gators, one game they hate the Gators. What is the fan buy-in, and what's the fan turnout down here in Hoover or Omaha look like?
Good Omaha, Lord. 102. Yeah. Think about Peyton Manning. Omaha. It's interesting because Florida, and I asked some of the guys, like, do you feel like you're playing with nothing to lose? And they're just like, no, this is Florida. We're supposed to be in Omaha. We don't feel like the underdog. We don't feel like we're playing with nothing to lose. But if you would have asked me in the fall, hey, how do you replace Brandon Sproat, Hurston Waldrop, Wyatt Langford, Josh Rivera, BT Ripe? I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot to replace. I started to think that they had done it, and then Florida just struggled. They lost their opening game. Their next 2 games were washed out. Then they won 5 in a row, games 2 through 6, and then they didn't win more than 2 in a row the rest of the year until this run that they've made. So the fans have been up and down, and Florida kind of loses games in one of 3 ways, and you just went to the ballpark, and if they lost, it was almost like, all right, run story A, because that's how they lost, run story B, because it was the bullpen again, or so the fans have kind of gone on this emotional roller coaster, and it's unlike any season I've ever covered. I've been covering Florida baseball since 2013, so it's a really unique one. But I think there is something to it. Once you get to that last month of the season, the guys always talk about it. At the finals, you're essentially playing professional baseball. You don't have class or papers to write. There's no studying. You just roll up to the ballpark, and I think they've been playing a little bit better since then. And then just keeping momentum. I think that's what they've been able to do. They weren't able to do that for long stretches. So the fan base has definitely bought back in. I think there's some Florida fans out here. Florida fans were spoiled, though. I saw some some people in the with the team wearing shirts that say "We Summer in Nebraska" because they're just here a lot. So there might be some fans who are just planning to come out later in the week. You just never know. When you lose game 1, it's a struggle to get back out. You have to win 4 games in 4 days when you're in this side of the bracket. So there are Florida fans, and the fan base has gotten so much bigger, baseball wise, and better. During the 11 years I've covered them.
Yeah, it's been so interesting because all season, LSU and Florida are kind of near the bottom of the SEC in the standings, but it never really seemed like that they were down there. The talent level just didn't seem like that should happen. And then later in the season, we've now kind of seen their emergence. I believe you guys have Pierce Coppola on the mound. What's kind of the game plan with him and who will follow him today or tomorrow, whenever that game's played?
Thursday, Friday, whenever he can play it. Pierce is super talented. He's a 6'9" lefty. When he showed up to campus, he was throwing 99. This is a guy who has top 5 pick potential when he's healthy. He had back surgery, only made 1 start his freshman year. He needed shoulder surgery his sophomore year. So they brought him back very slowly. He's only made 7 starts. He was on a strict pitch count. I don't think he'll be on the pitch count tomorrow, but he hasn't pitched in a little while, in a couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if there's some rust not being on the game mound. You can throw bullpens, but it's different when you're standing on the mound at the Chuck in front of 25,000 people. And I'm expecting there's some more BBN Nation here than there will be Gator fans. So I think it might be a hostile environment. He's really talented. Fastball, slider, changeup. If he can command it and throw strikes, he's really, really good. So the ceiling for him, I think, is incredible. We just haven't seen it because of his health concerns. And then it'll be interesting. It's almost better for Florida, in my opinion. And I was writing something about this before we hopped on here, that I think Florida, based on the arms that they use and trust right now, they could use a day off. And they would not mind, hey, let's take Tuesday off and we'll see you at 9 a.m. We'll play at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, but we'll spend some more time. So Brandon Neely's obviously their guy. He's thrown, I think, 65 pitches over the first 2 games Florida's played. You would love to have him get a day off, but when you're playing in Omaha, I would say Brandon Neely's probably on the card tonight. You don't want to use him, but if Florida's in a 1 or 2 run game with 6 outs or less, I would be surprised not to see him there. But Fisher Jameson's another guy, Jake Clemente. And then Frank Menendez is a lefty. I can't remember if he pitched against Kentucky in Gainesville, but he's kind of found his stride as a true freshman, found his stride in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Kentucky's kind of in that same conundrum too, where maybe a day off would really benefit them after they had Poozer and Moore go. And after Poozer and Moore, there's a big drop off there in terms of guys who can start and go. I think Dom Nyman is probably the probable. It's nice that you guys gave a starter. Minge waits about an hour 15 before every single game to put his lineup and his starter out there. But I believe tonight, if they do play tonight, it'll be Dominic Nyman, who did not perform well against Florida. I personally and kind of think maybe you should go a bullpen game if they go tonight. But yeah, definitely holding off to tomorrow, maybe being able to fast track a Poozer who threw on Saturday could maybe benefit them as well. But yeah, UK and Florida tonight at 6 here Central Time, 7 Eastern. Nick, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll see you over there tonight. And thanks to everyone for watching.